Hi everyone, here I am in the shop today and we are going to be creating a super simple, easy, hammered copper bracelet that is really simple, it's easy to make. If you are a vendor, it is a great thing to have in your booth because it is an easy seller. You can sell these things anywhere from $25 on up, depending on the size of the bracelet, the intricate nature of it, and you won't be able to keep these things stocked, trust me. Okay, so what are we using today? We're actually using copper piping that I got at the hardware store. That's right, the hardware store. And you can buy this stuff in rolls. This roll, obviously I've used a lot of it, but a roll of this stuff cost me like $12 depending on the size. And I got a ton of bracelets out of this. We're cutting off a length of 5.5 inches today, and depending on the wrist width of your customer, obviously. I usually keep 3 different sizes in stock. I have some that I've cut at 5 inches, 5.5, and 6 inches. I've had to make some bigger bracelets than 6 inches, but those are usually custom. So we're going with 5.5 inches today. And as you can see, I can get a lot of bracelets out of this. So go to the hardware store to get your copper, not online from one of those fancy jewelry making places because they're gonna charge you a lot more. Okay, so let's get started with our hammered copper bracelet. Okay, so here we are at the anvil, and the first thing I want to do is flatten out my copper tubing. It's a little bit curved here, so I want to make sure that it's flat. And pardon my gloves, as I explained in the last video, my belt sander likes to chew up my gloves, like just chew them to pieces because my fingers are short and they're all up inside my gloves. And I just cannot find a solution to this problem. So if anybody has an idea about a better kind of glove that won't get chewed up by the belt sander, please let me know because I am really suffering. And this is getting expensive, guys. I go through gloves like nobody's business. So help me out here. Okay, so all I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of getting rid of the curve that I don't need inside of it on the end here. Okay, so when I cut this, I used my bolt cutters to cut it. So you see this that is pinched off at the ends. There is a fancy tool you can use that will leave it open on the ends. I have one of those, but I'm not worried about it because my ends are going to be flattened anyway. So I don't care about that. If you are someone who cares about that, then get yourself a little pipe cutter thing that will leave them open. I just don't care about that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start hammering on this, but I don't want it super, super flat. I'm going to hammer it until it's about half flat, so there's some volume left inside of this pipe. See, there's still some volume left inside because I want to be able to create texture. Okay, I like that. And don't worry if it's not perfect in there because we're going to be hammering it with another hammer here in just a minute. So I'm not worried about that at all. Okay. Now I'm going to switch hammers. I'm going to use a couple of different kinds of hammers. I really like this one. I like the end of that one because it gives me some nice texture. And I also like this one. It's an old one. I don't know where I picked this one up at, but it's a pretty cool hammer. I've just had it for ages. I don't know where it came from. But you can find cool hammers all over the place. I like to look at garage sales for tools. You never know what you're going to find. Okay, so I'm just going to start hammering on this. No rhyme or reason, really. I'm just creating some texture. I like that. And if you notice, it's still kind of puffy inside. That's good, because that's what's giving us that cool texture, is that we left that space inside of it. And don't worry about the ends. We're going to shape those on the belt sander here in a few minutes. Okay. I think I like that. Okay, so when you have all the texture you want on it, then we're going to flip it over, and then we're going to pound it pretty hard with the weighted hammer. That's going to make it flatter. And if you notice, I flipped it over. I'm doing the same thing from the other side. And I like to do something along the edges here. I like to go ahead and grab a different hammer. I like this hammer for this part. It's got a little bit of a rounded edge here. I like to go ahead and just hit. I like to hit the sides here. This is the point in time. It's also good if you are a switch hitter. If you're a switch hitter with a hammer, this is a good time to be ambidextrous. Okay, so if you notice, what's happened here is that my copper has started to bow up because of the hammering. Not a big deal. Just lay it flat and hammer it from the other side that is raised up. Not a big deal. It also bowed a little bit that way. So whichever side is raised up should be pointing up from the anvil. And then hammer from the opposite direction. Okay, so now we have our bracelet in flat form. We're going to take this over to the belt sander, and we're going to shape our edges. The reason why we're going to shape our edges first is that it is a lot easier to shape our edges now than after we form the bracelet. Okay, let's go ahead and go over to the belt sander. Okay, this is the machine that is almost 100% responsible for all of the holes in my gloves. It has chewed up more gloves than anything else, but it gives me the best results on shaping the edges of my bracelets. So it's what I use and it works. So until I find something better, this is what I'm going to stick with. Okay, so I'm going for a rounded edge on the end of my bracelets. So I'm going to turn this puppy on and let's get after it. Okay, we are all shaped on the ends, and you might be asking yourself, I wonder how that is responsible for chewing up her gloves when I never saw her thumbs touch the belt sander. Well, that's because the bracelets aren't responsible for chewing up my gloves on the belt sander. The pendants that I make are what are responsible for chewing up my gloves, because when I'm sanding a pendant on this thing, I have to get super close, and that is what is responsible for chewing up my gloves on the belt sander, just in case you were wondering. Okay, let's go over to the mini grinder next, and we are going to get all the rough edges out of our bracelet. Okay, I love, love, love this mini grinder, but I go through these things like nobody's business. I mean, I go through them constantly. So I think I mentioned this in the last video, but it bears repeating, trust me. You can probably pick one of these up pretty cheaply at either try Facebook Marketplace if you're on a budget, but I know Harbor Freight carries them, and Home Depot, any place like that, you can get one. But try try Marketplace and like thrift shops, that kind of place, if you're on a budget, definitely. But Harbor Freight is where I used to buy these all the time, okay? Oh, this is all dusty. Okay, I used to buy these gray wheels at Harbor Freight all the time. Well, the problem with buying these at Harbor Freight is that I always get one of these little grinding stones with it. I have so many of these grinding stones, I do not need any more of these, and I go through these all the time. So now I buy these by the sleeve, and this is a lot more cost effective. So if you get into doing this, buy these in bulk online. It will save you a world of hurt. Okay, there's my lecture on that. Okay, while I'm using the grinding wheel, I like to keep one hand without a glove. Your copper will not heat up nearly as much as it does on the belt sander, and I like to be able to touch it to see if I've smoothed out any of the rough surfaces on here, if everything is smooth to the touch, because we don't want it to be rough when we put it on. And it's a lot easier to do this now than after I form the bracelet on the anvil. Okay, so this tool is great for getting all the rough spots out, but it's also great for polishing. If you're taking a look at what I've got on my wrist right now, I desperately need to polish my bracelets. I need to take them over here and get them polished. So when I'm done with this, what I'll do is I'll put a clear coat, any kind of lacquer on the clear coat lacquer on the outside will do. I'll put that on the outside to help keep it from tarnishing a little bit. And on the inside, I'll leave that raw copper so that my customers who believe in the power of copper can get the benefits of the copper. I believe in the benefits of copper, and just because I have a lot of joint damage from what I do for a living, and so I like to leave the inside of the bracelets raw for my customers, but I like to keep the outside as pretty as I can for as long as I can. So eventually everything will tarnish. Copper is no exception. And a lot of people say, oh, well, copper is going to turn your skin green, right? Well, copper will turn everyone's skin green if you haven't drank enough water. So there's that. So, okay, we are going to next go over to the anvil and we are going to shape our bracelet. So let's go. Okay, if you have never shaped a bracelet before, please, please, please be kind to yourself during this process, because it is not always the easiest process in the world to learn. It did not come naturally to me. It took me a lot of trial and error to learn this. And I will say this, it would have been a lot easier for me to learn if I had an anvil that had a bracelet horn or a bracelet fixture on it rather than a horn. And they do make those. So when you're anvil shopping, you might want to look for something different. I learned with a horn, so that's just what I use. I am looking for a different anvil. Anvils, you can pay what you want to for one. I've been trying to not spend money on a new anvil, and I have a feeling that that's coming. But, so we use what we got and we move on from there. So anyway. So here's how I learned, and ooh, the wind's picking up out there. Okay, so I am going to start on one side and then move to the other side and move back and forth. Again, this is where it really does help if you know how to use a hammer with both hands. Because, especially if you're using a horn, because the horn is sloped downward, it's going to help if you know how to use both hands. One of my sides is a little bit longer, but that's okay. So I'm going to go back to the other side. And again, probably looks a lot easier because I've done this a lot. Now, after I've got it kind of like this, what I like to do is I actually like to scoot up onto the horn and actually just press down with my hands. No hammer involved, just to give it a little bit of a curve. Just to bend it a little bit. Now, I can't do that with everything. It depends on what I'm using. This tubing bends really easy. That's why I suggest you start with this tubing. Mine is a little bit wonky. That's okay. It's a little bit off. And I've been doing this for a while, and even mine get a little bit wonky sometimes. Mine is just a little bit off in there. And if that happens, just play with it on the anvil, and you can pull it apart with your fingers. If it starts to get too close together, just pull it apart. But you can see we're almost done already. And I firmly suggest that you start with one of these. That way you don't have to bang the crap out of anything with a sledgehammer. I'm not tapping really hard with that weighted mallet. These are just great. These are great for this copper tubing. It works awesome. And there we go. we have a completed bracelet. I am now going to spray this with a lacquer on the outside so that it is protected on the outside from tarnish. And hopefully during this time, while you've been watching this, you have liked and subscribed to the channel. Please, please, please follow along for more tips and more things that we're going to be making on this channel. And I will be back in just a minute with a hint. Okay, yeah, that's all there is to making these really simple hammered copper bracelets. So if you liked this video today, please, please, please like and subscribe and follow me for more tips and tricks. In the next video, we are going to be making some very simple hammered copper earrings that you can make with very few tools. They're really fun to make and they're pretty profitable. So yeah, keep following me for more videos and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Until then, stay safe and love each other. Bye.